The Rangers are rolling, and Aaron Boone needs a hug. First pitch is next, guys. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 32 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pye, and with me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sissom. Will, what a week, my friend. How you doing?
Doing good. It's been a good week. It's been a really busy week, but we are doing well. What about you guys?
Oh, man. Great week. Great week. Went to the Renaissance Fair today. Pretty interesting time. I'm going to be honest. We have some family, or my brother's family, rather. They actually do the jousting, and it is. I mean, it's nerve-wracking. You know these guys are professional. They're well-trained. They've done it before, but those are still mammoth horses they're riding on at full speed. But it's a great time, man. A lot of people get dressed up. I thought, well, it'd probably be sprinkled in here or there, but the majority of it was people dressed in fancy garb. So lots of fun. It was easy for them to find us because I was wearing a Red Sox shirt. So that's pretty helpful. That's where you'll find me in my normal everyday life. So that's the sweet spot. Before we get rolling, though, happy Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Just take a moment to say thank you for those who played the ultimate sacrifice so we can live in this country, free. And we have all the rights and liberties that we have because people fought for that, and that is something that we don't think about enough, but we should. And so we just hope everybody enjoys time with this weekend with their family, but understand what a big day it is and what that really means. Will, baseball, man, we had a lot of good baseball games. Let's dive into some where do we stand. Look at these standings. Been a lot of fun. Up into this point in this first division, the AL East, the AL Beast. The Tampa Bay Rays still rocking at 39-16. Unbelievable, dude. They're going to hit 40 games before the end of May. I mean, they just roll. Followed by Baltimore doing their thing, 34-19. The Yankees have come alive, 32-23. And then Boston in fourth place, 28-24. Toronto, 28-26. So still everybody looking great there. In the Central, you got Minnesota still in first place, a game over 500, 27-26. Detroit at 25-26, and then Cleveland, the White Sox, and Kansas City. And then in the West, you have Texas at 33-19. Houston still doing their thing at 31-29, so they're 2 games back. And then you have L.A., Seattle, and Oakland, which I hate to bring it up, but they lost again today, okay? They have the same number of wins when we were talking about this last week. They're stuck on that number 10, the elusive number 11. I saw about in the middle of the week, they're on pace to go like 30-132. So God. At this point, that would be the worst by about 10 games. At this point, I think we kind of start looking at it and rooting for it. Let's watch a baseball team win 20 games this year. What do you got? Oh, my gosh. 0-10 in their last 10. They're on an 11-game losing streak. What do you got in the American League?
Man, the A's are definitely as bad as advertised, that's for sure. They should get relegated to, like, Double-A after this year. But, yeah, let's talk about the good teams. Obviously the East, you touched on it. It's been like this all year. What is really crazy to me, though, is the Blue Jays now in the cellar in the division.
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk a little bit Blue Jays later in the episode, but that's really kind of interesting to me. The Central is starting to get a little interesting because the Twins, I don't know what to think about the Twins. I struggled with them in the preseason, and I honestly am still struggling with them. I really don't, when I watch them play, I don't really know what they're really, really good at on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
I feel like Joe Ryan is legit. He's having a great year. I think the back end of that bullpen with Duran, I think he has potential to be one of the best closers in the game.
Yeah.
But, man, we've talked many times about Byron Buxton. He's obviously their most talented player. But there's just really nobody else in that lineup that's super exciting. The Tigers have actually closed ground on them, and just to one or two games behind them now.
Yeah, single game.
Yeah, and are we really gonna have this year and the Tigers end up winning the Central? How crazy is that? I mean, the Tigers just felt like at least a year ago or 2 years ago, they felt like they were several years away.
Yeah,
at best.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The Central's really interesting because of how mediocre it is. And I tell you what, the West is fun. The West is not as good top to bottom as the East. But, man, I think we're going to have at least 3 teams in the West within striking distance of winning that division, at least through the majority of the summer months, I think. And so I think that's going to make for an exciting race. Obviously, the wild card is going to be exciting, but there's a lot to like in the American League. There's some really good teams in there.
Yeah, you look at the West and the East. Any of those teams, man, you feel like they can make the playoffs, other than Oakland, of course. But even Seattle, who's in 4th place in the West, 27-25, they're doing their thing. 6 games back at first place. So you're right. I think it's all we can hope for as fans. It's just, competitive baseball games. And the Central, it has not turned out the way we thought. I mean, the Guardians just don't hit the baseball. That you have to score runs to win games. And they're not doing it. So I made a note. There was one team that had a positive, win in their last 10 at 6-4, and that was the White Sox before today. So, but they're still 22-33 and have big question marks. Dylan Cease got rocked again, and he just has not had a very good second year after second place in the Cy Young Award voting. So. Yeah, we got a lot of time to watch this unfold. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go to the National League. And just as good, man, really, when you start diving into the East, you got Atlanta at 31-21, still dealing with a lot of those rotation issues, still waiting on guys like Fried and Wright. But guess who's coming back on Monday? Soroka. So, hey, fantasy leagues, I saw he's about 20% rostered on Yahoo. He might be worth a look-see, and I'd be curious to see how much fab he's going to go for because this is going to be a big start on Monday. I mean, I feel like he's either going to be gone at this time next week off waivers or, he'll be back dropped and people will kind of be fading him a little bit. Then we have Miami in second place, 27-26. The Mets are 500, 27-27. They're 5 games back. Game behind them, Philly, 25-27. So, you got 3 teams within about a game and a half of each other. That's really awesome. And you got Washington 23-30. In the Central, you have Milwaukee at 28-25, followed by Pittsburgh a game back, 26-25.
Hanging in there.
That's it, man. Cincy 24-29, and then it just gets weird. St. Louis 24-31, kind of cooling off a little bit, and the Cubs are in last now. Odd, 22-30. And then in the West, more of the same. You got the Dodgers, 32-22, just doing what they've done for about a decade. Arizona behind them by 2 games at 29-23. And then San Fran, 110-12, Will. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
San Fran, San Diego, and then Colorado to round that out. Takeaways, broad strokes on the National League.
You know what's really crazy is, so the National League is not nearly as deep this year as the American League, right? But as a result, in the National League, there's only 2 teams, in my opinion, as of right now, that I'm just kind of counting out as far as the playoffs go. And that's the Rockies, and that's the Nationals. And the Nationals are actually way better than I thought they were going to be. Like, I think the Nationals actually have some hope moving forward. I think they're still a year or 2 away from really probably competing for a wild card spot, but the Nats are much better than I thought. They've got some good young players. The Rockies are sort of in rebuilding mode. I think they're, a few years away, especially in that division. But having said all that, those are honestly the only 2 teams in the National League that I would just right now rule out as far as not really having a shot at the playoffs. everybody else has a legitimate shot. Mm-hmm. Even a team like the Reds have started playing better. Now, do I think they're going to make the playoffs? I don't. But
they're 4 games back.
They're 4 games back. So you know what? I've seen stranger things happen. And I tell you what, if you're a Reds fan, you've got some exciting stuff that's going to happen to that franchise in the next year or two, because that farm system has some really, really good players in it. Mm-hmm. And so I know there's been some lean years over the years recently with the Reds, but I tell you what, I think brighter days are ahead. But, getting back to kind of the overall landscape, I think 2 teams have really impressed me lately. Mm-hmm. Number 1 is Arizona. I think the Diamondbacks, I don't know that they're going to beat the Dodgers in that division, but I think the Diamondbacks are a playoff team. I've just kept waiting for them to just kind of hit a losing skid, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I really like what I'm seeing out of the Diamondbacks. And I tell you what, this sounds crazy to me even thinking about what I'm about to say. But another team that's really kind of impressed me recently is the Marlins.
Yeah.
The Marlins, I've never questioned their pitching. I know Sandy's even had a down year, but I think he's going to figure it out. I like Luzardo. I like Yuri Perez. I love Edward Cabrera if he could ever figure out how to control the baseball. Yeah. But I tell you what, man, that lineup I've been really concerned with to start the year off with. Mm-hmm. But, man, some guys have caught fire. De La Cruz is starting to hit. Jorge Soler is starting to find the power stroke again. Yeah. And I tell you what, man, if those guys, along with Arise and maybe a guy like I'm drawing a blank. Who's the guy that came from the Phillies? Second, Gene Segura. Mm-hmm. If a veteran like that could step up in that lineup, man, to go along with that pitching, I tell you what, don't write off the Marlins just yet. They're not going to beat the Braves in that division.
Yeah,
but I am not ruling them out of maybe being the final wild card spot in the National League.
Yeah, you push for a playoff spot, and then you get in with that rotation. Anything can happen. I struggle, and it's no hot take here. I struggle with that lineup, and you look 1 through 9, and you're like, where are the runs coming from? Soler has been on a different planet the last week or so. I think he's had, I don't think he homered today, but prior to today, 5 home runs in 5 games. So he's going to do that. He's done that before in his career. I don't know. I think in my head, I still believe that the Mets are going to find it at some point and click a little bit better than they have. They're 7-3 in their last 10. So maybe. I know Verlander got rocked again. Of course, that's in Colorado, so maybe you take it with a grain of salt. But he's kind of had a little bit of a turbulent start, and then Scherzer as well. So, if they can piece it together, it's the same thing with them. If they get into the playoffs, or I guess win, I mean, I think a lot of people already have them put in there. You're looking at a 2-headed monster that's going to be pretty nasty. So, be a lot of fun to watch. In the Central, I might be buying some Red stocks, man. They have that Matt McClain came up. Spencer Steer has looked amazing, and then they have the prodigal son that they're. I mean, every day I get on Twitter and I see this guy hit like a 400-foot bomb.
Elly De La Cruz.
That's exactly right. And so I really don't know what they're waiting for. I think in my head, I hope they do something because let's give Avado one last taste of playoff baseball. I think that would be really cool. So, and nobody's running away with that division. We keep saying it, and it keeps happening. I thought the Cubs might have what it takes with Steele and Stroman doing their thing, but still got crushed by the Reds. So that was a big series. All that to say.
I think the Cubs are just struggling. The Cubs that bullpen is a disaster.
Yeah.
With the Cubs. And, man, I'm with you. The Reds are going to have to outscore some people. Mm-hmm. But you know what? They can do it.
Dude, yes. And they have Diaz in the ninth, which he has been as locked down as his brother. I mean, he has looked disgusting. So maybe make a trade. Maybe make a trade for a bat, maybe a late bullpen arm, potentially like a 7th, 8th inning guy to go with Diaz. And I don't know. Let's see what happens. Everybody in this division, the Cubs, last place, 5.5 games back. Yeah. So, yeah, just like you were talking about, man, up in the American League, there's so many teams close together. And with the extra wild card spot, it's going to be a ton of fun. Speaking of fun, Will, and people who must have had fun this week, let's hit Heat Check Player of the Week, man. I kind of had my eye on this guy that you put down, but I didn't realize his numbers were this good. Why don't you tell me about it, my friend?
Yeah, I'm going to the Lone Star State. Josh Young for the Rangers. If you have not had a chance to first off, let me just plug the Rangers. If you haven't watched the Rangers play and you're just waiting for this team to just kind of crash and burn, I think you're going to be waiting a while.
Yeah, might not happen.
This lineup is legit. And Josh Young, if you have not yet seen him play or heard of him, this is mainly his first full year regular playing time in the major leagues. Former first-round pick, big-time prospect, and he looks legit. He's hitting 5th in that order, right behind guys like Seager, Nate Lowe, Adolis Garcia, and Young hits right after those 3 guys, and obviously Semien at the top of the order. But this week, Young has done. He's hit 10 for 21. That's good for almost 500 as far as batting average. 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and 6 runs scored. And I'm telling you, man, that Rangers lineup is really good. And so I really don't see him slowing down anytime soon. I think he's going to have a ton of RBIs this year. And if somehow, some way, if he's still sitting on a waiver wire somewhere, go get him right now. But my player of the week is Josh Young. He looks to be a really good one.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting for that fan base. I know. I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I guess who am I thinking of? Maybe I'm thinking of Josh Smith, the guy who came over from the Yankees in the Gallo deal. So never mind, I'm wrong. Corrected. We corrected ourselves. That's very exciting.
Yeah, they picked Young a couple of years ago in the draft. I think he was their first-round pick out of Texas Tech, and he is
2019
legit.
Dude, that's exactly right. Born in 1998. He's younger than me. That's gonna take a while to sink in. Okay, 25-year-old. What a stud. Yeah, same things that you see with a lot of young players, with the low walk rate and high strikeout rate. Everything else looks incredible on this guy. Hits the ball in the air, hits the ball really hard. So that's obviously a recipe for success. And like Will was saying, he's absolutely raking right now. And he wasn't drafted. I don't even think he was on our third baseman board. We'll talk about that, I'm sure.
He may have been a lotto ticket.
Would he? Maybe? Well,
yeah.
Well, stay tuned. We'll definitely let you know for sure in coming episodes. But, yeah, he is, man, I felt like a lot of things had to fall right for the Rangers in order for them to compete with the Astros, and they have, and he is a big reason for that. So, super excited. My Heat Check Player of the Week, kind of a weird one. I don't feel like when you look at his stat line, it was anything spectacular. But context for me, it was what kind of made this an easy pick. Marcus Stroman, with the Cubs, had 8 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. So obviously you're like, why does that matter? Why is this, something we're talking about right now? Well, it was against the Mets, his former team. And if you're keeping score at home, had a little bit of a salty breakup with that team. Didn't like how the front office was managing things over there in New York, and when he signed with the Cubs, he said he's beyond grateful to leave, and just had all kinds of turbulent steps throughout his time there. So he went back, and I don't know if you watched, he was not The unwritten rules of baseball were being broken, Will. I mean, he was barking at the dugout, saying some expletives, and I guess you can do that if you can back it up, and that's exactly what he did. So, big win for the last place Cubs. I don't know. Did you see the Mets player? What do you think about the Mets player coming out and saying he didn't like it? But he didn't put his name to it. I mean, that's kind of odd.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I honestly don't have a problem with, guys being super competitive in the heat of the moment like that. You know what? At the end of the day, if you want Stroman to shut his mouth, hit him.
Yep.
So I don't really have a problem with it, and good for Stroman. I'm sure he was very highly motivated in that game.
Yeah,
and he produced. It was a great stat line for sure.
Yeah, 8 innings pitched, 88 pitches thrown. So that's pretty solid. A lot of ground balls. I think he got 24 outs. 17 of them were ground balls. So that's pretty solid. Honorable mention, Michael Kopech, future ace of the Rays, guys. The last 2 weeks, man, 15 innings pitched, 19 Ks, no earned runs. WHIP, which has notoriously been very high for this young man, 0.43 over those two starts. And even, I peeled it back even further, the last month's 31 innings, a 1.99 ERA. So this dude's figured it out. He's figured it out. Looked really rough to start the season. He's right at 50% rostered, so he might be out there in some leagues. If you have, listen, pitching isn't what we thought it was, okay? And so there's a pretty high likelihood that there's a guy on your bench that maybe you can drop to give this guy a go. I might think about doing it. Anything on Kopech, Will, before we move on? Future Ray.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. But I tell you what, I'm with you, everything you just said. The question with Kopech is not talent or stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got that in more than abundance, right? But with him, it's the control. It's, how do I manage a game when I don't have my A-plus stuff? How do I get through 5 or 6 innings and only give up a run or two when I don't have my A-plus stuff? So,
yeah.
So hopefully this is more of, a sign of more of this to come.
Mm-hmm.
My challenge to Kopech is do this again next month. Show that you can be consistent month after month after month and live up to some of the hype that this guy came up with in that Red Sox organization.
I forgot we gave him away as part of the Chris Sale deal.
Yep.
So I still feel like we might have won that trade. I mean, we got the ring in 18, so that's not nothing. That's obviously very important. Will, rest of season, would you rather have Edward Cabrera or Michael Kopech?
Oh, man, that's a good one. Man, those two guys are so similar.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say if whip is a category, I would probably slightly favor Kopech.
Mm-hmm.
Just because Cabrera has yet to prove to me that he can consistently not walk a ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd give the slight edge to Kopech, but man, I like Edward Cabrera too. But I would give the slight edge to Kopech.
Yeah, before this run, I mean, they were pretty similar, but Kopech's looked good. He really has.
Yeah.
So that's super good for him, man. Okay, moving on. And this is something I've been super excited to bend your ear about, man. What's on the grill with Will? We have a few topics here, 3 to be exact. And let's start out with number 1, sophomore slumps. What's going on with Witt, Harris, and Julio? I'm going to throw some stats your way. Let's start out with Bobby Witt. 241 average, 9 home runs, 25 RBIs, 34 runs scored, and then, of course, 15 stolen bases. He's always going to get the job done there. He might be the best of these 3 performing so far, but not what that ADP of 7 really, really expected. What do you got on him?
Yeah, it's kind of more of the same. I feel like we've been very consistent, even from preseason stuff on Bobby Witt. We were very skeptical of, a 7 or 8 ADP average draft position, 7 or 8 overall, I should say. Just because here's the thing. We knew that the home runs and the steals were going to be there. The power speed combination is legit. But do you really want to draft somebody in the first round that's going to hit under 250? Like, that's my question.
Yeah.
I feel like when you look at other guys that you could have had, at that draft position, Freddie Freeman, Yordan Alvarez, guys like that, it's like
Soto was picked behind. I mean, and it was a dynasty, but still, in one of my leagues, he was picked behind Bobby Witt. I just was flabbergasted.
I mean, the only, and I've said this, the only saving grace for Bobby Witt, and the thing that will always keep his value reasonably high, is he's going to steal an insane amount of bases. At least for the foreseeable future. Because he's just so dang fast. But man, it's just, I don't know, man. When you invest a first round pick in a guy and somebody's hitting 240, man, that's tough. I mean, he better be, if somebody's going to hit 240 and be a first or second round draft pick, he has to be an outlier in basically every other thing out there. And he's just not quite there for me. Now, if you're telling me he's available in the third round, especially given third base eligibility, I'm all over it.
Sure.
But man, 7th or 8th overall, that's, I don't know. We thought it was steep, and in my opinion, I think we were right on the money all along with him.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit too. I mean, that team is just not it. Team context is just not there. And so, I mean, we talked about it before the episode, I guess earlier this week. They moved him down in the lineup. He was batting leadoff. Now he's batting 6th. Just not a lot of big names there in front of him. So it's definitely, I don't know, man. Like you said, we always thought 7's kind of wild. And I don't know. There's a lot of season left. His average is a little bit up. He's still not walking a lot, okay? Strikeout rate is about where it was, but that walk rate is at like 4%. I mean, he just...
Yeah, that's concerning.
Yeah, and so he's a very young guy, 22, 23. So got a lot of time. So in dynasty leagues, like you always said, you'll never fault him for that, but don't be prepared to compete this year, because he's not going to be worth that draft pick. I've been going back and forth how I want to do this, and I guess it'll be kind of like a peak in a valley wheel. So Witt's kind of the peak of these three. Let's talk about the valley, buddy, which valleys can be beautiful. All right. You're on a mountain, you're looking across, you're like, wow, that is something special. Michael Harris II. I have no words. This guy had an average draft position of 26 coming into the season, and he's been hurt, but when he's been on the field, it has been absolutely terrible. 181 average, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 9 runs, 4 stolen bases. What are you seeing on this guy?
Yeah, it's tough. I had Michael Harris last year. I had good Michael Harris.
Yeah.
And, the thing that, even last year, the thing that gave me just a little bit cause for pause was the fact that the Braves kept hitting him 9th pretty much all year last year. And even when he was playing really well and producing, I was like, why don't they move this guy up to, I don't know, 6th, 7th in the lineup, being a lefty with speed and power. And that's one thing I didn't really understand even last year when he was going. But going into this year, I will say I did have my questions, because I knew he was going, in some leagues he was going late 2nd round. In most leagues he was going, kind of 3rd round was mainly where he was falling, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know. Like, I think the one thing you have to keep in mind with a guy, especially like Harris, is remember, basically at this time last year, he was in Double-A.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
And the Braves, if I remember correctly, they were mainly bringing him up like they loved his defense in center field, and I don't even think the Braves knew how his bat would translate to the major league level, and it just so happened that he was such a good athlete and obviously a really talented player. He figured it out. But, man, this year, the thing that's really concerning more than anything is just the number of uncompetitive at-bats that I've seen. I watch the Braves a lot, and, man, there's some at-bats to where it looks like he doesn't have a clue. It's not even close. And
Correct.
That's the biggest thing right now for me that's – now, do I think he's going to hit 180 all year? No, I don't. But for people who spent a third-round draft pick on it, man, it's going to be hard to get that kind of return on that investment.
Oh, it's not happening. And I, one of my favorite things to do on my Yahoo teams, it might exist on Fantrax, but if it has, I haven't found it. On Yahoo, though, you can click on the player and go to the comment sections, and it is so day-to-day, especially in daily lineup leagues. It really cracks me up, man. People are high on a guy, and then they're just like, I'm dropping him. I'm dropping this guy. And it always kind of, if there's a player I'm frustrated with, it always kind of like makes me feel a little bit better. It's like, okay, we're all frustrated. We're all in this together. See, it's that whole human nature thing. We're not alone.
Right.
But I read a comment. I was like, this is such a great point. They're like, they're going to send him down. If he keeps hitting like this, he's going to get sent down. So I texted you that, and it is so – it was in the realm of possibility after last year and just a total lack of track record. They signed him to that big deal, I think it was like $70 million, $75 million. So won the Rookie of the Year. And, it happens. It happens. And like we keep saying, this year isn't over. But – you can't start him right now. He's an automatic out. He's just like Manoah. He's like a virtual certainty that he's not going to produce until something changes. And so he was the second pick that I took in our home league, and it's been torturous. James Outman was a fix for a little bit. He's fallen off pretty hardcore. I don't know how much you've looked at his numbers. Michael Harris, man, it is time, brother. We've given you some time. It's officially Memorial Day weekend. That's kind of a line in my mind that's like, okay, now it's officially not early anymore. We need to start seeing something. Okay.
I think to your point, to finish up Michael Harris, if it was not for the fact that he was really, really good defensively in center field, I think that the comment about him being sent down, I think there would have been merit to it. I not to say that it's impossible at this point, but the fact that he is such a good athlete and the Braves do really like him for his defense, I think that's the only thing saving him because the bat does not look good right now.
And if he's on a team that's not the Braves, because you need hits from your center fielder sometimes, but they really don't. Then it would be a definitely more pressing issue, but it's
bad though.
I do wonder if there's going to reach a point where they're like, we cannot sit around and have this guy hit 180,
Yeah.
And we say that he's not going to hit 180 all year. He hit 170 this week. We're going to talk about him. He was my Roman Candle player to go off. So we'll touch on that at the end. But spoiler alert, Will's up 3-0. Here we go. Last guy, Julio Rodriguez. I'm going to keep it positive, Will, man. I'm trying, I got to turn this franchise around. Julio Rodriguez, okay, 233 average, 8 home runs, 26 RBIs, 33 runs scored, 8 stolen bases. I read somewhere that the Mariners have the lowest on-base percentage of leadoff hitters. And I was like, oh, is that just Julio having a bad start to the year? That's exactly what it is. He's looked pretty rough. Seems to be picking up a little bit the last week or so. But he was a top 5 pick in a lot of leagues. A lot of people were super excited about what they saw. Again, Rookie of the Year. Probably got some MVP votes in there. What do you got on Julio?
He's probably the one guy out of, these 3 players that I'm still – I guess that I'm not as much down on as maybe the others. I I think he will start to figure it out. He has, as you mentioned, he has looked better over the last probably 10 days, maybe 2 weeks at the plate. And I don't know. And obviously, if you remember last year, he got off to an awful start. So I don't know. Some guys, I don't know what it is. Some guys are just slow starters. And it's one of those things, I don't think that you can really explain it. Other than the fact that they just kind of get off to a little bit sluggish start, and then they kind of figure it out and get better as they get their timing, and as more games are played, they just kind of figure it out. And maybe Julio is that guy. But I mean, now you mentioned it. Now, if somebody invested a top 5 pick in this guy, which if you were going to get him, you pretty much had to.
Sure.
I definitely understand it's probably really frustrating right now. And, if I was in that position, I would probably be fishing around for trade value or whatnot. Yeah. But I really do think, though, that he is, other than Ronald Acuna, he probably has the most raw talent as far as young players in the league.
Yeah.
I think he'll figure it out. I think his floor, as long as he doesn't get hurt, I mean, I think he's going to be a 25 home run, at least 30 stolen bases guy, and that's very valuable. Now, the average, let's see where the average falls at the end of the year. Right now it's, around 240-ish.
233.
Yeah, so if he can get that average somewhere around 270, then, and you couple that with the power speed combination, you're not going to be too far off. I mean, it's not the season you would want if you invested a top 3 or 5 pick, but you know what? You can stomach that if he ends up getting the batting average to close to 270.
Yeah, I would hold on. I'd hold on, and here's why. Okay, I'll grant you this. K rate's elevated. Chase rate is up a lot from last year, so obviously he's swinging at pitches outside of the zone. Expected batting average. Okay, I just said that his batting average is 233. Expected is 266. So, obviously, there is a touch of bad luck there, and I think this kid's going to go. Like you were saying, he's just too talented not to. Yep. And the same argument could be made for Michael Harris. That's why I would probably hold him. There's a lot of leagues where I've seen him dropped, and there's leagues that I've dropped him in. But they were super shallow leagues. I do want to say, if it was like a 10 or a 12, I'm not dropping Michael Harris. But anyway, context matters, guys. We got to make a T-shirt that says that. Will on the to-do list to do. Julio will figure it out at some point.
Yep.
Let's talk about something that I've been super excited. If you're seeing the thumbnail on YouTube, you know what's next. Angry Aaron Boone, Yankee skipper, suspended 1 game by Major League Baseball for conduct towards umpires. He'd been ejected in 3 of the last 10 games, and apparently the other night accidentally spit on the umpires. Now, I don't know how many arguments you've seen, but they get like brim to brim, and I think there's probably spit going both ways. Article came out calling him Karen Boone. That's what the umpires call him behind his back. I don't know if you know that, Will. I audibly laughed. I was sitting at work, eating lunch when I read that, and I thought that is hilarious. What do you got on Karen Boone?
Man, I mean, what can you say? I mean, he's getting ejected at an insane pace right now.
I got stuff on that. I do.
I don't know. I have to believe that the pressure is turned up very high right now on Aaron Boone. I think that we've talked a lot about the Rays in that division. We've talked a lot about Baltimore. And, I mean, you know what? The Yankees aren't really gaining much ground on those 2 teams ahead of them. And I think what's really worrisome is, I would say that if you asked the Yankees management and front office and even the players before the season started, how do you think this season's going to go in relation to the Red Sox, your biggest rival? Oh, they'd be like, oh, God, the Red Sox are going to be in the cellar, and I don't know. I just feel like that the Yankees maybe had an idea of how the season would go in the preseason and how it is starting to turn out is kind of a nightmare. They've had a ton of injuries. That lineup has not been good outside of Aaron Judge again, and Rizzo's been good.
Rizzo looks good.
But other than that, man, they haven't looked good. The bullpen's kind of been a mess as well at times. And I tell you what, when you really watch the Yankees play and you compare them to the Rays and the Orioles, even the Red Sox and Blue Jays, man, like, okay, let me throw this to you, Cody.
Here we go.
I would say, and I want to see if you agree with this. Do you not think that the odds are much better as of right now for the Yankees to finish last place in the AL East than they are to finish first place in the AL East at this point?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. And honestly, they played okay. You know, they're 9 games over 500. Pitching has been a big question mark like you were talking about. But do I think they're in the same tier of the Rays? Not even close. And maybe even Baltimore, who went to their house and took 2 out of 3. Man,
and you've got to believe, like, the Yankees look around that clubhouse and it's like, man, we're the Yankees.
Yeah.
And you see Aaron Judge. It's like, man, we got arguably the best player in the game right now. And we've got all these stars kind of walking around our clubhouse. And then you see the Rays, who have a bottom 5 payroll year after year after year. And you look at Baltimore, and other than Adley Rutschman, what's the average fan? Name 3 more players on the Orioles right now. It would be hard for a lot of fans to do that. And so it's like, man, we're like behind these 2 teams, and we're the Yankees. And then we've got Boston and Toronto that's right there on our heels. And I don't know. I just feel like a lot of this stuff with Aaron Boone, there's a lot of pressure, I think, going on right now. And I think a lot of people within that organization are really uneasy as far as how everything's going right now.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I actually like the Blue Jays to finish ahead of them. And I know the Blue Jays have looked terrible. We're fixing to talk about them. But I look at that team. There's a lot of outs in the back half of that lineup. And if a guy like Nestor Cortez doesn't find it, because he's been pretty average this year. You know, the last couple of years have been a little bit of a fairy tale for that guy. And he has gotten hit. And then that coupled with all the injuries, I don't know who's the closer for the Yankees. I mean, I guess you said Clay Holmes, but his whip is like 17. I mean, dude, he doesn't have clean innings, and so I don't know. I'm glad I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm glad, but the Yankees, man, they you're right. They spent a lot of money, but it hadn't panned out. It's kind of like what the Red Sox have done last few years. But speaking of Toronto, let's keep it in the East, man. Let's keep talking about teams in the AL East who aren't performing. The Blue Jays had a team meeting, said players only, after losing 3 out of 4 to Tampa. Who's shocked there? Nobody in this call. They are 6-15 in the AL East. That's a team you're going to be competing with for the division, and they can't get the job done. 2-8 in their last 10. They did win today. What do you got on the what do you got on the Jays, man?
Man, there's I don't know. I just it feels like the Jays are kind of the classic. Everybody in the national media just loves them because they've got these young stars. They've got Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette, a guy like Dalton Varsho comes over to the team, big left-handed bat that they traded for. You know, and obviously before the season started, everybody really liked what they had going in that rotation. Alek Manoah, Kevin Gausman. They brought in Chris Bassett from the Mets. So on paper, everybody just falls in love with a team like this because they've got the big-time young stars. They've got pitching seemingly. And then they've got Jordan Romano at the back end of the bullpen, who's he's a very, very solid major league closer at minimum, right? So, so anyways, I just, long story short, I think they're the classic team that everybody falls in love with. And to be honest with you, I don't know if this team has figured out how to truly win yet.
Yeah.
When you look at this team and you compare them to, let's say, Baltimore or Tampa, Baltimore and Tampa, you watch them play, and it's like they just know how to win. They get clutch hits. Once they get to the bullpen, they very rarely lose leads. They do a lot. They play great defense. They do a lot of little things that add up to a lot of wins. And when I watch the Blue Jays, I don't see that. Yeah. I see a leaky bullpen. I see really inconsistent starting pitching. I see a lineup outside of Vlad Jr. and Bo that goes super cold at times. And so I don't know. Like, I like some of the players on that team, but I just don't know over 162 games if they're as good, truly, as a team like Tampa and Baltimore and maybe even New York.
Yeah, I'll ask you this. Who would you rather have record-wise? Okay, we're not talking about, because you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. But who do you think you would pick to have the better record over the next 5 years between Baltimore and Toronto?
Oh God, that's tough, because if I knew that Baltimore would go out and get them a big time starting pitcher,
that's true,
I would not hesitate and say Baltimore.
Yeah.
Because here's what I think. Okay, let me just say this. I think the big difference when you compare those two teams is I think Adley Rutschman for Baltimore means everything to that team. I think that Baltimore's whole franchise revolves around Adley Rutschman, and I think he's the type of player that basically don't allow them to go on these big long losing streaks because of not only how good he is, but just steady leadership. I just feel like the Orioles are in a great spot. With the Blue Jays, I think they have a more talented overall roster, especially when you factor in the pitching, but there's something intangible that I think is missing, and it's hard to put your finger on it just from the outside looking in, but I don't know. Like, I'm not buying as hard into the Blue Jays as a lot of people are right now.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it before I hit record, man. Blue Jays were the hot up-and-coming team that were going to take it from the likes of the Yankees and the Rays. And maybe it's a leader. I really didn't think this. I mean, they got Bo, they got Vlad, they got a lot of young people who have been there for a long time. Kevin Gausman, I'm sure he's a positive in that category. But talk about Adley, and I don't know if you've seen this statistics, but in his first 150 starts, 90 and 60 were the Orioles. And I mean, if you peel that away versus, what it was for years, like 100 lost teams, Not Oakland bad, mind you, but not good. So maybe it's a leader, but it's very interesting. And
so here's what I'll say. I think we're going outside of baseball for just a second.
Here we go.
Tom Brady.
Ooh, I like it. Like it already.
Like Tom Brady, if you just purely look at Tom Brady play football and you just, obviously, in my opinion, he's the greatest quarterback of all time just because of his record, how many championships his team's won. Obviously, football is the ultimate team sport, but Tom Brady was the major reason why the Patriots had that dynasty, and obviously he went to Tampa and won another Super Bowl. But what made Tom Brady so great is the leadership characteristics and how everybody on that football team rallied around Tom Brady, and they knew, because we've got number 12, we've got a chance.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't want to compare Adley Rutschman to Tom Brady, even though I kind of am right now.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of those same intangibles going on in Baltimore are because of Adley Rutschman. And, as much as he means just him batting every day in that lineup and him behind the plate, with all the pitchers catching their games, he just seemingly means the world to that franchise. And just because we've got Adley, we've got a chance. And that's kind of what it seems like to me when I see the Orioles.
Yeah, last point on this. This wasn't meant to be a Orioles bullet point, Will, but I love everything you're saying. I think it says pretty great things about Brandon Hyde because he was the manager. He's been the manager for that team for a lot of years and a lot of tough years. And I for one thought he was out the door many times, and they held on to him. And now he seems to be leading this, group of talent. Now, obviously, I mean, we could just have our own episode on the difference in the line between the GM and how they bring the team in and the manager manages the team. So it feels like he just needed the right talent, and he finally has it. And, man, they are about as exciting to watch right now in Major League Baseball as anybody. And I think that's really cool. That's really, really cool.
And I just think, just final thing.
Dude,
I just think the Blue Jays are missing – whatever intangible it is that Adley Rutschman brings to Baltimore.
Yeah.
It just seems like the Blue Jays are missing that from somewhere. And I don't know what it is, but that's what they're missing.
Dude, if we knew what it was, what's the X factor? Okay. No, hey, shout out to Ryan Howard, any Office fans out there. Will, you ever watch The Office? I don't think you have.
I have not.
Oh, man, there's a really funny scene where he's like, the thing about having it or the X factor is it's really hard to put into words what you bring to the table. Anyway, somebody's going to hear this and laugh. Well, you're laughing right now. It makes me feel good. Hey, let's talk about something that I think is really neat. And this is a pretty new segment that Will came up with, Studs and Duds. Now, we rolled it out last week, and I thought it was so cool. And essentially what it is, we look at our rankings. You remember those positional breakdowns we did in the preseason, and we look at those and we see who's performed. Those are the studs, and who maybe didn't, and those are the duds. So let's talk some studs here, Will. Let's just start. Let's pat ourselves on the back. Freddie Freeman, preseason we ranked him first overall, and he is currently number one. Statistics, he's unbelievable, man. A 329 average, 9 home runs, 31 RBIs, 43 runs scored, and 6 stolen bases, dude. This dude is a speed demon. What do you got on Freddie?
Man, he's everything that we really talked about preseason. He is, in my opinion, he is the safest first-round pick in fantasy baseball you could ever ask for. You pick him, and this is what you're going to get. I mean, you might not get 330 every year, but you're going to get 300 or above every year. You're going to get 20-something home runs. You're going to get 100 RBIs, probably 100 runs scored, and he'll obviously throw in some stolen bases. So, I mean, just like you want to talk about a high floor mixed with a high ceiling, this is your guy. Yep. And you know what? I'll keep saying it. All of you guys that picked Bobby Witt before Freddie Freeman, I'm just saying it. We try to tell you. You know what? Like we
should
tried
listen
to
to us.
You.
That's
we tried to tell you. You know what? So
that's awesome.
But yeah, I nothing surprises me with Freddie Freeman. The only thing that would surprise me is if we get midway through 1 year and he's like hitting 265. It's like what's wrong with Freddie?
Yeah.
But man,
20 points higher than what Witt's doing right now, by the way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But yeah, man, just as solid as it gets.
Yep. Moving on. Got to kind of keep it brief. I just looked at the clock. I was like, oh, man, we got to roll. Yandy Diaz. Preseason, we didn't have him ranked on our first base list. Now, I'm pretty sure he's on our third base. But, again, we're going to talk about third base later, guys. Currently ranked as the second first baseman on the board. Statistics have been unreal. 333 average, 12 bombs, 29 RBIs, 37 runs, and 0 stolen bases. But get this, dude's leading off for Tampa Bay. If that doesn't say 1 through 9 juggernaut, like having 29 RBIs out of the leadoff spot, I don't know what does, man. This guy has fixed his launch angle, and he is hitting tanks, and I traded him to you in Podcast League, and my team has exponentially gotten worse since doing that. What do you got on Diaz, my friend?
Man, remember everybody, I'm a huge Rays fan, and I'm just honestly in shock of what I'm seeing with Yandy Diaz, and I love Yandy Diaz. I always have liked Yandy Diaz, but what we're seeing this year, I'm still kind of in awe. And I mean, I honestly felt like it was possible. If you just look at the guy, he looks like he should play linebacker in the NFL. Like, he is a stud.
Oh yeah.
But like, every year, if you go back and look at his stats, he would always hit for a solid average, but man, the power was never there. And now that we have all these advanced analytics, we know that he just hit the ball on the ground. And now he's figured out how to get the ball in the air more consistently, and here's what's happening. And I, as a Rays fan, I hope it continues. I do think we'll see a little regression, but man, if he keeps this whole launch angle deal and lifting the ball like he is, he's going to have a huge year.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you want to talk about a guy who's going to jump up exponentially in draft boards and
because he doesn't strike out.
No, dude, he's the most Rays Ray that's ever rayed. He's just gosh, it must be so nice to be a Rays fan right now. Okay, moving on. Will's like, yeah, it is. If you're not on the YouTube side, he is hardcore nodding his head right now, so that's awesome. Let's see. Anthony Rizzo. Let's see. Preseason, we ranked him 17th. He's had a really solid year. Kind of a sneaky, under the radar solid year. He's currently the 8th ranked first baseman. 305 average, 11 homers, 31 RBIs, 30 runs scored. No steals. But what about Tony Rizzo, my friend? What do you got on him?
Yeah, he looks really good this year. Obviously, he's hitting in a good spot right behind Aaron Judge most of the time, which is obviously helpful. But still, he's looked really good. I think he's definitely a beneficiary of the non-shift, or as much of a shift as they were doing in years past. I think, in my opinion, I think it's honestly more of a mental thing. Because when you look, if you're a left-handed hitter years prior to this year, and you just look out there and you see guys all over the right side of the field, and you're a pull hitter, it's like, man, how do I hit it away from these guys? And it probably gets in your head after a while. And so I think more than anything, it's probably a mental thing for some of these guys, but I think he's definitely a beneficiary of that. But let's not take anything away from him. He's looked really good. Let's hope he continues to stay healthy. And I'll say this, the Yankees need him.
Yeah.
Because, man, if he and Aaron Judge go cold, it is bleak for that lineup. So for the Yankees' sake, they need him to continue to produce at this high level.
Yeah, it's been exciting to watch. If you're a Yankees fan, you got to love the average thing, because early in his career, he hit for like a 280, 290, never hit for a 300 average in his career. So he can do that, and coupled with that short porch in right field, those homer numbers are going to be there. This is shaping up to be like a really solid year for Rizzo. So that's pretty awesome. And like we said, kind of a lesser first-round option going into the year. So that's why it's always fun to look at and kind of see how we did. Let's talk about some duds. And I just want to get this first one out of the way. He's like the most awesome dud that's ever dudded, okay? Pete Alonso. And I know what you're thinking. Whoa, what are you talking about, man? 4th is where we had him ranked. He's currently playing like the 9th ranked first baseman. 234 average, 19 homers. That's enough to lead the league with 45 RBIs, 35 runs scored. The thing is, hit 271 last year, 40 home runs. He's almost halfway to that mark. Here, we're nearing the end of May, but the average has fallen off, and I don't think either one of us saw that coming. What do you see in Mr. Pete?
Yeah, and he actually hit another home run last night, so he's up to 20.
He's at the 20? Oh my gosh!
So, but I'm with you. So it's not like he's having an awful year. Obviously, he's leading the whole major leagues in home runs, and that's something. I think the Mets just as a whole have kind of been a little bit disappointing, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about Alonso specifically, I will say, because I have him in one of our leagues, and so the average is a little bit frustrating. There's quite a few nights where he'll go 0 for 4 or 1 for 5, something like that. But I think this is just my opinion. I think that if you draft Pete Alonso, I think you have to realize that you're probably not going to get a guy who's going to hit 290.
Sure.
If you're being realistic. And so as long as he does his thing, which is leading the league in home runs or top 3 or 4 in home runs, I think you have to be reasonably happy with it. Obviously, we hope that he can at least get the batting average up above 250 at minimum so that it's not too much of an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he will.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he's striking out a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's some positive regression as far as the average goes. But I'm with you. To this point, the average has been a little bit low from where we drafted him. But at least the power's there. The RBIs are going to be there. And let's see how the season progresses. I think that those of you who drafted Pete Alonso, like myself, I think we're going to be okay on this one.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's say, do you picture him? Could he win the most valuable player if he hits 245, 250, but gets 55 bombs in a league that has Shohei Ohtani?
Well, he's in the National League, so...
Oh, Lord, I don't know what I was looking at. You're exactly right.
So he's in the National League, so yeah, I think if he gets... I think it all depends on how the Mets do. If the Mets, catch fire and play up to the kind of the potential that I think we all think they at least have, and obviously he's more than likely going to be their best player because Lindor is not having a good year.
Yeah.
If he leads the league in home runs and maybe RBIs and hits 55 or more, and the Mets are firmly a playoff team, I absolutely think that he's got a great shot for sure. The one problem is Ronald Acuna.
Ooh, yeah.
If Acuna keeps on the pace that he's on,
40, 60.
It might not matter if Alonso hits 60. So, I think that's the one problem. But to answer your question, I think he's got a shot. It's just going to depend on how the Mets kind of end up record-wise.
Yeah, hey, strikeouts, just to put a bow on this, strikeouts have not been bad. 26 walks, 47 strikeouts. Rate is better than it was last year. So, hey, OPS is up from last year. This is a Studley dud, okay? We might have a few of these, but I just wanted to point out, I think in my head, I thought that average might go up a little bit, and it has not done so. Moving on with our more Dudley duds, okay? CJ Cron. He was 7th on our list, and he's currently ranked 42nd. Now, there's a reason for that. He has a back injury, but he's going to be coming back here in June. His numbers were very underwhelming. 228 average, 6 home runs, 20 RBIs, 19 runs scored. Just kind of a miss. He had more of a year like the back half of last season than the front half. Anything on Cron?
Yeah, I mean, injuries are tricky, especially back. So, I mean, if that was a lingering injury all along, that could very well be the reason right there. If he's healthy, it could be a buy low window for somebody like that, especially in a deep league. If you're searching for power, because he is going to play his home games in Coors Field, which is nice. But but man, the injury's tricky, man. I have to believe that with a drop off that prominent, that injuries have to play a part. But nevertheless, if you invested a middle round pick, in him, you definitely have to be disappointed, at least to this point.
Yeah. Hey, last one, Jose Abreu. Now, we ranked him number 10 on our list. Currently ranked 67th overall first baseman. Now, these rankings, Dude, are there 67 first basemen in the league? Yeah, I mean, even with your teams and your team backup first baseman, I don't know. But the point is, it's not looking great. 217 average. Hit his first home run tonight. And this is something I want to point out, okay? It could be that they're in they're in Oakland. It could be that they're on a great run as a team, 8-2. Or it could be, and this is probably what I expect, they love this guy. They got out of the dugout. They were celebrating with him. Hit his first homer. Maybe that'll set him off. But, yeah, 1 home run, 17 RBIs, 13 runs scored. I said some stuff on this podcast. It was number 10. I sounded nervous. If there's anybody who wants to go back and laugh with us here. I said I'd bet a sizable amount of money, all the money in my bank account, that he would have more RBIs than Vinny Pasquantino. Okay, now, nobody's holding me to this, but it just goes to show it's going to be a long year. He's going to turn it around, and he will have more RBIs than Vinny P. Will, what do you got on Abreu, my friend?
Hey, at least Vinny P doesn't hit in a very good lineup in Kansas City, so we got a shot.
I was kind of hedging my bet there, you know. He's not.
Yeah, but, man, I don't know. I'll say this. The start to the season for Jose Abreu has been about as surprising as anybody in the league, regardless of position. I cannot believe how bad he's been to this point. I mean, because when you go back to his White Sox days and if you just purely look at his year after year after year numbers, he was one of the most consistent players in the whole league. Mm-hmm. And we both thought going to Houston that it would actually be an upgrade, not only in ballpark, but lineup, really everything.
Yeah.
But, man, it has not played out well. Hopefully the home run today will spark something positive.
Yeah.
But, man, he has to be up there, at least for me, minimum top 5 most disappointing players, at least throughout the first 2 months of the season.
Yep. Nope, that's exactly right. That was a bad call by me. He has not performed. Speaking of bad calls by me, our last segment, our Roman Candle Pick to Click Player of the Week, Will. Picked Corey Seager last week, okay? Week 8 pick. Pretty solid guy, okay? Love it. He went 7 for 25. 280 batting average, 1 double, 2 home runs. Didn't even write down all the stats because it's not important, because that's a win for you. Because I picked Michael Harris II, and guys, I don't know what to do with this. I'm just going to pick Yordan Alvarez this week, okay? That's what I'm going to do, okay? Harris went 3 for 17. That's a 171 batting average, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, a 40% strikeout rate. So we're down 3-0, okay? And I'm going to tell myself what Celtics coach told them a couple days ago. You're going to turn it around, Cody. It's going to be fine, all right? You know, pick yourself up and make a good pick this week. So we're going to give it a shot. Week 9 picks, Will. You're up 3-0. You must be feeling good. Nice and relaxed. Look handsome over there. Nice haircut. Who do you got this week?
So I'm going to your territory. I'm going to Boston Red Sox.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm going Masataka Yoshida. Here's kind of my logic. I know the Red Sox, I think, are playing pretty good baseball. I really like that lineup a lot. I think Yoshida is turning into perhaps their most steady hitter. When I watch the Red Sox play, I really feel good about what Alex Verdugo is doing most of the time. I really like Yoshida a lot. Devers is kind of up and down for me, but he's, their most talented player. But I think Yoshida is a guy that if the Red Sox are truly going to make a playoff push this year, he has to be worth every penny of that contract that he signed in the offseason. And I think so far, at least he's lived up to it. So that's my guy this week. They have a big series next weekend against Tampa, and it's in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's a really, really big series for Boston. I think that if they're able to win 2 out of 3 somehow against Tampa, I think it could really springboard them to where maybe they end up making a push to overtake the Yankees, stay ahead of the Blue Jays, and who knows, maybe be a buyer in pretty heavy capacity at the trade deadline. So we'll see. I think it's a big week, though, for Boston.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Didn't think I'd have to root against my boy Yoshi, but here we are. Okay, this is how the cards have fallen, and that's what we're going to do. Because you can't go down 4-0. You just can't do it. Okay, Will? My pick this week, and let's just quick prayer. Ozzie Albies. Okay, rough week last week, buddy. 4 for 24, no home runs, 1 single RBI. I want to see him tee off in Oakland and then in Arizona. He's currently ranked the 14th second baseman, and he was in that blob of like 5 solid second basemen before the drop-off. So really hasn't played that well. I'm looking to see him turn it up against the worst team we've ever seen put on a uniform, and then a really solid team in Arizona, but hopefully they will miss Gallen. I think they will. I was doing the math on that when I made this pick. So, big thing with him is not stealing bases. He had 1 this year, 3 last year, 20 the year before it. So, injuries are definitely playing a role with this young man, but I'm really hoping, as much as a guy can hope, that he can turn this thing around for me, because I thought this was the coolest segment idea, and Will's just like making me eat it every week. So maybe next week we're talking about a victory. Will, anything else before we take off, my friend?
Man, it's been a good episode. We've talked about a lot of good stuff in the game going on right now. The game's in a great spot, man. I watch a lot of games, and there's so much talent in the league right now. Really, outside of Oakland, I feel like almost every franchise at least has a player or a couple of players right now. It's like, man, that's my guy, or I love this guy, or this is a young guy that our franchise is going to have for years to come, and this is exciting. So the game's really fun. Love the rule changes. There's more offense. Game's moving at a quick pace. So I really, really like what I see out of the just overall state of the game right now. Yeah. And from a fantasy perspective, there's a lot of offense. It's actually tough to find consistent pitching right now. We'll talk about that more as the season progresses. But yeah, the game is rolling. The game's in good hands. A lot of good players, and good luck in this upcoming week.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we love you. Listen, if you're listening on the podcast, we really, really appreciate you. And if you're on the YouTube side of things, I'm wearing a sweater. It's super hot in my room, but we're going to power through. This is my mother-in-law's favorite sweater, I think, probably. So I did this in an ode to her and her Astros. Guys, reach out to us at BTH_Cody and at Will Sism. Let us know how your year's going, how your fantasy league's looking. If you have any questions, you ought to direct them to Will, because obviously I'm not doing a very good job picking players. That's okay, though. It's a marathon, guys. It's not a sprint. Hang in there. Have fun. Happy Memorial Day. But until next time, thanks for listening to episode 32 of Bringing the Heat.